Welcome to Robert's British Cars and Stuff. I'm Robert, this is a British car and everything else is stuff. Today we're going to do a first start on this 1974 MGB. Quick background on how I acquired the car. This car spent a great deal of time in Bremerton, Washington, where it was under restoration. The gentleman who was doing it passed away. He sold it to another guy, and that guy was going to finish the restoration, but 3 years later he never touched it and ended up selling it to me. I brought it home and started going through boxes and boxes of stuff. To my surprise, there were a lot of parts missing. Thanks to my friends, Ron especially, who came up with the most peculiar little parts that I needed and was gracious enough to provide those to me. A lot of the parts that I got were for a GT6, so I don't know what I'm going to do with those, but I have quite a few. In any case, the engine was not in the car. There was nothing in the car. I assembled the transmission. It is an overdrive transmission, and went through the engine, which was rebuilt when I got it, and it seems like they did a pretty good job. There's a lot of new stuff in there. And then I put the engine on the transmission, put the engine and transmission in the car, and started hunting for parts. Let's go around the engine here and see what kind of things we improved slightly. We put on a stainless steel braided oil pressure line, the stainless steel oil cooler lines, along with the new oil cooler. And since we're up front, we'll talk about the fans and the radiator. This is an aluminum radiator, and it has two cooling fans that I wired up to a temperature switch, which I'll move this out of the way. You can see is right there in the top hose. Theoretically, the hot water comes out, trigger the switch, the fans come on. We'll see what happens, right? While we're on this side, no modifications here other than the fact that these are HS4 carburetors. This car, I believe, came with HIF4 carburetors. Here is one of the boxes of stuff that I got with the car. And as you can see, here's the HIF4 set of carburetors. The problem with this carburetor, there's no throttle shaft or butterfly or anything. So I was going to rebuild these and acquire the necessary parts that are missing, but I didn't want to spend a lot of time rebuilding these. I want to see if the engine's going to work before I spend a lot of money on rebuilding carburetors. But this is the stuff that came with the car. One of the interesting things right here, this is not for an MG. This would work on a TR6 or a GT6. So there's those GT6 parts laced throughout the boxes. So in going through those boxes, I noticed that this pedal box cover was missing. This is one of the pieces that my friend Ron shipped to me from Michigan, and I painted it up, put it on there. It works fine. Here is the brake differential assembly with the switch in it. This was leaking. I replaced the O-rings in the little pistonette slides left and right. A lot of things I got with the car: new motor mounts, hoses, etc., etc. Oh, also, I did not have the pipe from the heater to the lower radiator hose. So I made this out of a piece of copper tubing, and it should work fine. I may be putting a bracket here to hold it in place a little bit better. Coming over to this side, we're not going to run the fan on the water pump because we're going to run the electric cooling fans. Hopefully that won't be an issue. Regular generator, alternator. We have here a electronic distributor, and that is wired into the new coil. And that's about all that's unique under here, other than the fact that the front suspension, which I really can't get a shot of here, is all been redone. It was removed from the car, from the chassis, from the frame, from the body, and totally rebuilt. Okay, here we are under the car, and as you can see, this whole frame cross member was removed and rebuilt. It has new shock absorbers on there, new springs, has the polyurethane bushings, kingpins, everything. It's just brand new. The guy spent a lot of money on this. Another modification was moving the battery to the trunk. I will fabricate a battery box and hold down for it at some point in the future. Right now it's on the charger because we're going to try to start the car. Inside the trunk is very clean. There's no rust on this car. Underneath the car, there's no rust either. The top looks to be in almost new condition. It fits really well. Goes up and down smoothly. Let's take a look inside. You know, maybe somebody could help me with this one. These are the tops of the doors, and the leather, well, it's brown leather. I believe it should be black. So what, any suggestions on what I can use to bring that back to its original condition? The door cards are in amazingly good shape. The interior is nice. I had to purchase floor mats. It didn't have any. The seats are nice, original. We'll try to sit down here, get in the car. I installed the steering wheel. It's not really attached yet because I have to align the front end, but the dashboard is all there and there's no cracks in it. I reconditioned this. There was nothing in the middle of the car, so the little console part here is something that I had laying around from previous cars along with the radio plate. And what I did is this switch right here, click, that's going to be, well, hopefully it's the overdrive switch. It's wired to the overdrive, and hopefully the overdrive works. So there's the interior. Let's start thinking about turning that key and firing this puppy up. Maybe it's hard to see from under here, but the car also came with a new header and a new exhaust system that, of course, goes all the way back out the back of the car, which is where the exhaust system is supposed to go. Interesting thing under here, as you can see that little section of frame, there is no rust under here. The floors are solid. There's the transmission, and the cross member has been powder coated. And again, there is no rust under this car, which is why I bought it. Rust-free and overdrive. Hard to find these days. Another note is that the car is up on jack stands right now, and I'm going to leave it there for the first start, because if it starts leaking fluid, I want to be able to get underneath the car and fix it. Well, the car has been fed. It has received a full complement of the 4 basic food groups. The 4 fluids, it has all new hydraulic fluid, oil, coolant, and of course gasoline. Hopefully the gasoline will stay in the fuel lines and carburetors and not come running out. I did, previous to this, I ran the fuel pump and pressurized the system, and there were no leaks. The radiator is full, and again, we have no leaks of coolant at this time. The hydraulic system, well, it has, the car has new brake lines, as you can see, and when I started bleeding the hydraulic system, new cylinders, new master cylinders, by the way, there was fluid everywhere. It was raining under the car because in my haste, I forgot to tighten all of the fittings. So they were tightened, and we also filled it up with oil. I ran the starter. Oh, speaking of starter, we can see under here, it has the high torque starter. It does not have the original starter. Anyway, I ran the starter to build up oil pressure, and in doing so, discovered that it was leaking oil pretty well, because somebody, namely me, forgot to tighten up these nuts on the backing plate. So the oil was coming out in here and filling up my garage floor. Those have been tightened. I again ran the starter and got up to 50 pounds of oil pressure, and no leaks so far. So let's see what happens. My older brother is going to turn the key. I'm going to work the carburetors here and see what happens. So we're going to choke it, and we're going to give it a little gas. Go ahead, hit the key.
You ready?
Yeah.
Continue. Oh, I hear the fuel pump running, don't I?
Yeah, the fuel pump is running. Go ahead, hit it again.
Okay. How long do you want me to crank it?
About like you did.
Okay.
Again. Okay. Again. Okay. I'm not getting any action here. I'm hoping I have the electronic ignition hooked up right. I do. Go ahead, try it again. Again.
Should this fuel pump be clicking
Yeah.
all the time?
Go ahead. Okay. Well, I can see that the little pistons in the carburetor are going like this. And we did have good compression. I did take a compression test. So if we're getting fuel and we've got compression, we must not be getting spark. I'm gonna have to go investigate that electronic distributor. Well, the first thing I did here was take out a spark plug. Go ahead and hit the key. As you can see, it's sparked. So we have compression and spark. So that means the problem is over here. Well, as you can see, we have spark. And as you can hear when we turn it over, we have compression. So therefore, we're not getting fuel. I hear the fuel pump pumping. I see fuel in the fuel filter. And I'm thinking, boy, you know, I blew out those carburetors and I put all new parts in them. And they're not that complicated. The pistons are pulsating up and down when the engine turns. So it occurred to me, it's just not getting gas, obviously. So what I just did before I decided to roll the tape here is I held the palms of my hands over the carburetors and had my trusted assistant turn the key. And it fired a little bit. Then I remembered when I was checking for spark, I turned that distributor every which way, trying to get some sort of fire, but of course there was no fuel. I didn't know that at the time. So I have not timed the distributor. I turned it a little bit closer. Then I pulled out the choke. Let's reenact that. Trusted assistant, pull the choke out as far as you can and lock it.
Done.
Okay, hit the key. It's alive! It's alive! Not running all that smooth, but it's running. Trusted assistant, pushing the choke. New header. Well, we're not having the distributor time or the carburetor consumption. 74 MG, after sitting for many, many, many years, is now running. Trusted assistant, turn off the engine. We're going to let this air out a while. One side note, when I started the engine, we had an oil issue, meaning there was oil all over the floor. As you can see, the oil dry is in the old oil spot, and there's a new puddle of oil on the floor from when we just started the engine. Let's go down here, see if I can do this. There is an oil passageway on the back of the cylinder head. It takes a plug. Nobody told me. There's oil running out of there like a garden hose. This is the engine for my 1964 MG. And if we look on the back of the cylinder head, you can see that plug. I don't have one. I have to figure something out. I have to find the plug and I have to figure out how to put it in there. To be continued. Let's review. The engine starts and it runs. We have to set the timing, adjust the carburetors, and then there's that pesky oil leak in the back of the cylinder head coming from that hole we didn't know about because we didn't know there's supposed to be a plug in the hole. So I have to order a plug, install the plug to stop the oil leak. Then we have to switch out the water pump. The water pump is leaking from the hole on the bottom of it, leaking pretty good. I have a nice aluminum one I'm going to put on in its place. After that, we can see how good this engine runs. We're going to do all that in the next episode. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.